This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slecker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
Yes, it is. Happy New Year, Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Yeah, we're still educated educators talking education, looking forward to a brand new 2025. Dr. Johnny, producer Jess, how are you guys doing as we're coming into this new year, Johnny?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, I'm excited. It's a banger of a year already. It's like we're a day in. Things are looking good, and I'm excited for this year's Busted Pencils. Fully leaded education talk. I love what we've done in 2024. And if you caught Homeroom a couple days ago, you got our end of the year kind of highlights, and those are just a quick remembering, like us remembering some of those big moments and special things that happened in 2024. But here we are. It is now 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, unfortunately, democracy is still in the ICU. It's on life support. There are some concerns that the three of us have. It's also a lot of hope, a lot of optimism, and a lot of positive energy and organizing for 2025. There's still that youthful energy that ignited. It's existed, but it really ignited last year. And I think it's still going strong. And I think it's going to carry some exciting moments for 2025. But I love this. We're here together, class in session, first show of the year. Remember, listeners, if you want to call or text us, leave us a message, ask us a question, join the conversation, 608-557-8577. You can leave us a comment, ask a question. We'll bring it in on the show. We'll go into the mailbag and incorporate your voice into Busted Pencils. Remember, that's 608-557-8577.
I just add to that too, Johnny. And this is our kind of predictions, premonition show.
Oh yeah, it's a little tradition here at Busted
Yeah.
Pencils.
And listener, put yours out there. We want to know. What do you think? We would love to hear from it. Jess, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
How is your 2025 starting out?
Oh, bright and shiny. I mean, this is just notifications, Tim. Come on, man. First episode of the new year.
He's getting texts. It's a busy new year for Dr. Tim Slecker.
I'm just so happy to be here, so ready to start busting pencils. I mean, 2024 was a wild roller coaster, and we are ready to make some predictions, huh?
Oh, yeah.
We are, and it is coming. And I'm going to start off. It is going to be a wild 2025. We said democracy, as you said, Johnny, a little bit in life support, ICU, whatever you want to point out, because what we're talking about is that this is going to be the year of the second Trump administration. And, as much as there wasn't any darn talk about education in that election, we know full well that education, public education, particularly in America, is going to be incredibly influenced, affected. You want to know, jeopardized? Yeah, that is going to happen because we know that President-elect Donald Trump has said, first of all, doing away with the Department of Education. But Johnny, my prediction right away is that we will see, and I'm going to put this out there. I think we're going to see it before February, that there will be a national voucher bill that will get put through. And I bet I'm going to say it will even make it through both houses before February, setting up the president for a very quick win on one of the things that he has been promising he's going to deliver. That's all. There's prediction number one. What are your thoughts, guys?
I think it'll be interesting, Tim, because as we talked about on the last show, and we brought it up quite a bit in the end of 2024, is that we know that voters around the country, especially in rural districts, but also in urban districts, and I'll toss the suburban districts in there too, although they're less impacted by this, but they're part of the mix, voted in favor of shutting down vouchers across
Mhm.
this country. So there's an interesting sort of juxtaposition there where we know that no matter how people voted around this country, and in essence of reducing it to who they voted for in the presidential election, that they voted against vouchers locally.
Right.
And so this will be an interesting moment for us to be talking about on Busted Pencils, because when we talk about education, we've said it before here, but a little 101 lesson, civics lesson, right? Education is a state right. So this is
Mm.
going to ultimately fall to states. However, there's going to be something interesting happening with not just threats, but supposed political promises. And I always say
Mhm.
a political, promise is a supposed political promise, because everyone's the education president until they're president. And then they don't really do a whole lot
I
to change much in education. So, optimistically, maybe the Trump administration does very little to
Mm.
change education. However, I'm with you, Tim. I think a premonition is that they will attempt to, as you say, have kind of a low hanging fruit, easy win here by by how they promised their voters that they would close the Department of Education
Mm.
essentially,
uh-huh.
and and put forth a national voucher, bill. How that will do will be interesting, knowing that most voters, and I mean that, like a majority of voters around the country, regardless of how
Mhm.
they voted in favor of shutting down voucher movements in their states or in their areas. So this is going to be an interesting, I think, fail for this administration.
This leads me to my other prediction, and I've got this from some people I follow out there. Is that when you point that out to Johnny, that there's a disconnect between what the voters want when it comes to vouchers. Voters did not vote for a national voucher bill. In fact, where voters had the opportunity, as we pointed out, they said no to vouchers. So the imposition of the Trump administration, conservatives, and MAGA coming forward and now potentially forcing a voucher on people, I think this is going to cause serious disruption in the Republican Party. And I welcome that disruption because it's about time that they're there. I don't know, Jess, thoughts?
Well, I think that certainly this administration is going to try to push that national voucher bill. And as both of you said, I think it's going to reflect very, very badly on them, because when we look at where vouchers were on the ballot, it's not
Mhm.
like they were voted down by a really slim majority. They were voted down overwhelmingly. I mean, I'm remembering back to our episode with David Pepper, where he
Right.
looked specifically at this one area of Kentucky where, they went 80-20 for Trump. And what was it, 74-26?
Yeah.
Against vouchers. That's not close. That is overwhelming. And we saw that across the country. So I think what might happen is that there's going to be really significant national pressure on these elected officials to vote in favor of vouchers, but that their constituents are going to raise their voices and say, hell no. You
Mm.
keep your hands off our public schools.
That's all we can hope for there on that one too. And I agree. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So big predictions right there. Yes, Trump will be incredibly disruptive. We know it. Department of Education vouchers going forward. Johnny, next prediction.
Well, if you're tossing it to me, I think I'll go with an easy one that'll take us into more exciting things. But Tim, I do think this is a very easy premonition to make. I think we're going to have continued discussions, maybe even some debates. But as listeners know, I've come around on this in the last year. I think we're going to continue to dive through and, work closely with what is the impact of AI in education? What are the ways that it's making our classrooms better? What are some of the limitations? What are some of the exciting ways that it's changing careers?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so thus, the trickle down from that. How are we teaching with AI? What role does it play in our classrooms? I think that's going to be a big theme for 2025, because as we learned in 2024, lesson that Dr. Johnny here learned is that you can be stubborn and you can be opposed to it, but it's here whether you like it or not. And so engaging with understanding the implications it has on our classrooms, our schools, our learning, our work is important. And so I think we're going to, easy one for me to make, Tim's. I think we're going to continue to have these discussions, not only here on Busted Pencils, but I
But
think in all of our classrooms around the country.
I didn't make this quote, somebody else did, but I love this one. It ain't gonna uninvent itself.
It's pretty
You know,
true.
put that out there, but I want to put just a little bit nuance and complexity on that prediction, because absolutely right. I see this coming, and I actually think this will be a welcome when it comes forward. There's been a lot of over promising about AI and its ability to potentially work as an independent tutor one-on-one and things like that. I think that the reality there is that we're going to actually get down to get rid of the snake oil parts of that potentially, because again, guess what? Too many people out there selling too many ways and too many solutions. And I think we're starting to realize that actually, if you want to dig deep into its power and its potential, there's still a lot more work that we have to do on the research on how it actually complements and or even hinders learning, because there's some interesting research starting to show that it does hinder learning in situations. And I think we need to understand that and be clear. I will say where it's going to be incredibly useful and valuable is that our ability in schools to actually create literacy, fluency, and skilling of using AI, because the workforce, Johnny, as you point this out, in schools need to really, really lean into AI from that standpoint. How are you putting it forward for the students, and how are they going to be using it when they leave school, either going to college, going to the workforce? So that's where my premonition is that we're going to see an acceleration of goodness in the reality of really saying we've got a responsibility that students leave AI literate, AI skilled, and that we're going to have a kind of calm and stepping back and really giving a sense of going, where does AI help students learn, and where are the places where it'll actually hurt? And that's going to inform good pedagogy. That's mine, Jess. What do you think?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I do think that there's going to be more AI, and I'm really just excited to learn more about it. I've definitely been more in Johnny's camp of really suspicious of AI and feeling that, cutting out the human input isn't always the best move. What I've seen through a lot of the guests that you've had on here and a lot of the different programs that I've then done some research into to build up the podcasts is that, these are tools. These are tools that really can help us, because the world is a lot different now than it was a decade ago. Certainly a lot different than it was 2 decades ago. And rejecting it just because it's unfamiliar, because it's uncomfortable, because it challenges the way that, I was taught and the way that I learned how to do these various processes, that's not a good enough reason, because AI is going to be part of the future. One of the quotes that's just been ringing around in my head is that AI isn't going to replace anyone, but someone who knows how to use AI will replace you if you don't know how to use it. So I really appreciated learning the nuance of AI and learning the places where it can really enhance learning rather than taking away. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that. I think we're also going to see a lot more garbage from AI. I think we're going to see a lot more garbage before we see the clear paths.
Okay, well there it is. So there's some new predictions. I jumping ahead. You know what? Is this a prediction, or is this just we're so awesome? But I think we're going to continue having very incredible, influential guests, and in fact, I really look forward to this year building the partnership with Randy Weingarten and AFT, and the work that they do that is so important. We said we had Randy on before the election, after the election. There's a great connection there. The work that AFT does, the local unions, putting that out there, and the ability to have them come on, whether it's Randy, their important guest, talking about, labor. Because Johnny, as you point out, blue collar scholars, man, looking at that and saying, the presence of labor and really understanding the connection to the communities and public schools. I'm looking forward to an incredibly influentially great year where we develop a partnership with AFT that is going to do some incredibly powerful work.
Oh yeah, well, that's music to my ears, Tim. You said blue collar scholar. I mean, that's the identity, right? That whether we choose it or it chooses us, we come by it honestly. And so, having Randy on the show, having AFT, close with Busted Pencils, that's an exciting thing. And what I'll add onto that as a premonition is what that does is to echo what you're saying is really brings education into the conversation of what labor looks like in this country. And that's something
Mhm.
that AFT is doing because they're the second largest union for nurses. And I've said this for a really long time. Teachers and nurses have a
Mm.
lot in common. They're both care industries, they're both care workers, they're both frontline workers, right? They also historically feminized work. I say that in a really positive way, right? These are historically the women who take care of our communities, and that's often been devalued, as we know. Like patriarchy is a real thing. It's devalued that labor. And I think one thing we're learning is times are changing,
Mm.
and that youth voice that I talked about of being so alive in 2024 and so prominent, I continue to see it grow. And so that's exciting things happening from the AFT. So that's a little premonition I'll layer onto that is the year of the teacher and the nurse
Mm.
unified together, coming strong for a changed community and a stronger democracy. So you heard it there. Educators and healthcare workers, specifically teachers and nurses,
Nice.
being more
Nice.
vocal, stronger than ever, and fixing two really important things to any democracy: a strong healthcare system and a strong public education
Oh,
system. AFT brings those two together, right? Oh, look out.
look out.
Okay. If there's one thing I learned in my entire life is that when you bring strong women in your community together, shit gets done. And so we got some stuff to get done in this country. And I believe in teachers and nurses. So that's right. I'm saying it's the year of the teacher and the nurse
Nice.
together, making things happen. On that note, Tim, I'm going to take the next premonition and I'm going to say, I'm going to double down. I'm not going double or nothing because I'm already anticipating I might triple down next year. But I'm going to double down. And listeners who follow Busted Pencils closely, you remember last year, one of my premonitions was I hoped and believed we would see more educators running for office, specifically teachers. So if I'm over here saying it's the year of the teachers and the nurses, well, then you better believe that I'm going to double down on my premonition from last year. I'm carrying it over to 2025. I'm saying we're going to see even more teachers running for office. Yes, Tim Walz was a VP candidate, and there were
Yeah.
great teachers running for offices everywhere. But Tim, already,
Mhm.
it's one day into the new year. All right, it's a little bit of cheating on my premonition, but Busted Pencil's very good friend, Teacher
Mhm.
Hallie from Educators Amplified, is running for office. She's running for school board. So come on, Tim.
Ayo.
Already 2025. I'm doubling down. I'm going to say more educators running for office. So, listeners, if you're excited as I am about not only that premonition, but of our very own good friend, Teacher Hallie from Educators Amplified. Yeah, that's right. She said, enough's enough. Let's make some stuff happen. Already doing big change work in her community already. But she's like, you know what? I'm running for office. I'm going for school board. So you'll hear lots from Teacher Hallie, always from Educators Amplified, but in a special capacity. I'm already just going to reveal it here, Tim. You better believe Teacher Hallie's coming on here to talk about
Yes, she
what
is.
you can do as a school board member. And folks, it is not just me saying it's the year of the teacher and the nurses. You're going to hear Teacher Hallie talk about why educators along
Mhm.
making decisions about education. Go figure. Think about that happening in our communities.
Who knew?
Radical.
Who Well, you put that one right there, and guess what, though, too, Johnny? And this is, this local kind of teacher jumping in there right now to say like, well, why isn't she running for state office or legislature? You know what? Guess what? When it comes down to education, again, it really is, as you say, state right. It's even more. It's a local issue. And as we saw in 2023 and 2024, school boards are where particularly MAGA conservatives really targeted their efforts to get people elected to enact those policies, the book bans, the anti-CRTs, the attack on LGBTQ. Those all started at school board level situations that were targeted very specifically. So to have Teacher Hallie stepping in, you point this out. In fact, let's continue to really lean into the reality that, you know what, more teachers, as you're listening to this brand new Happy New Year's episode of Busted Pencils, you too can do it. We need it. We need a movement that continues. Make Johnny's premonition not even a triple down. Just give him the ability to celebrate with a big, big win. Jess.
I mean, yeah, we're going to see more teachers. This election, I think, it energized people in a way that I haven't seen in my adult life. And the outcome of the election, as devastating as that first week was after the election, what I saw just in my immediate circles and then the ripples outward were a lot of people saying, okay, then democracies are built from the bottom up. So we're going to get involved and we're going to see a lot more teachers and a lot more educators, a lot more of those blue collar scholars getting their boots laced and getting involved. People saying this is a democracy where the decisions are made by those who are affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Jess. That's my favorite definition of democracy. Decisions being made by those directly impacted by the decision being made.
Woo! Yeah.
Loving it, putting that forward. All right, so loving those predictions. I got to tell you another prediction I have. It's going to be the year of busted pencils. I mean, you're going to put it out there. He said, went from a podcast in 2014 to a live radio show in 2020 to then with Civic Media and Johnny Lupinacci and Dr. Tim Slecker, doing it every week for years and then getting that daily spot and then getting with producer Jess and then continuing to have the ability to, have incredibly powerful, great guests, whether they're national figures or they're local heroes, putting that on and realizing that. And, so I just, kind of thinking of, as we're ending our prediction show, I want to predict that Busted Pencils is going to continue to grow and be that place where, blue collar scholars, or as we said, your neighbor, where our neighbors can come to make their comments, their voices, or to learn and listen about how public education is that foundation of our democracies, those connections to local, and realizing that what's so important here, the protection, the preservation, the strengthening of our public school system. And with that, and realizing that the work we do here at Busted Pencils in promoting that, I just want to see that that's going to be, a great year, 2025, a great year for Busted Pencils. Johnny, that's my last prediction.
Man, I love it, Tim. And Happy New Year to all those listeners out there. And now it's time for your moment of Zen. Education becomes most rich and alive when it confronts the reality of moral conflict in the world.
Thanks for busting pencils, everybody. Happy New Year, Pencil Busters. See you on Saturday across the Civic Media Network. And man, hold on. We'll be back that following Monday for a homeroom. And keep busting pencils.